In this video, I'm going to tell you why Tim Tszyu's loss to Bakhram Murtazaliev has actually blown the entire 154-pound division right open, and it's not for the reasons that you might think. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Guys, I hope you're all doing well this week. I have just settled in for the evening, and I thought I'm going to have to make a quick video about the 154-pound, otherwise known as super welterweight division, or light middleweight, depends what you fancy. There's lots of different names for the different divisions in boxing, but we're going to go with 154 pounds. And this one, it's a division that right now I'm super excited about, and I just really feel like it needs a video. It needs to be spoken about. Guys, before I get into this one, don't forget to smash that like button if you wouldn't mind. It really helps me to get my channel out there. Hit the subscribe button if you're new, and please get in the comments section below just about any of the things we talk about in this video. I'm going to be going over this division, this top 10. I'm not really going to mention 8, 9, 10 in the rankings because I've never watched them. But they're all from the US, which is great and very exciting. But anyway, as I say, please get in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts on some of these matchups and who do you think is the most underrated fighter in this top 10. I saw today that the Ring Magazine posted their updated 154-pound rankings, so I just thought I'd read them to you. This is the top 10. We've got Terence Crawford, Israil Madrimov, Bakhram Murtazaliev, Sebastian Fundora, Vergil Oritz Jr, Serhiy Bohuchuk, Tim Tszyu, Jesus Ramos, Charles Conwell, and Brian Mendoza. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, 8, 9, 10, I'm not really too sure about. I've not really watched them. But everybody else I've watched, and have an understanding of their ability levels and of their styles. And I have to say, I think this is the best 154's looked in a very, very long time. And it requires a bit of discussion here because it's happened in a short space of time. It's been in the last year, really, that this division has started to look really good. Names in there that we didn't really know about before that we now have an understanding of their level of ability, at least to an extent. And other names that have come in and added themselves to the mix. You know, we've got those 10 names there, but not to mention there's a certain Jermell Charlo we're going to have to talk about in this video as well. But something that really encourages me about this list is the number of US-based fighters in the list, because I feel like the more American fighters you can have in a division, the more chance there is of creating some amazing domestic US rivalries. And it's something we don't see enough. You know, top US fighters fighting one another. You know, I think when boxing's doing really well, the sport is healthy in America. And right now, in certain divisions like the heavyweights, for example, where you really want to have a top US heavyweight, we're lacking that right now. So maybe 154 can be that division for us. Now, I opened the video by saying that this Tim Tszyu loss has actually really helped to blow the division wide open. And the reason for that is not because Tim Tszyu has taken a loss, but it's more the nature of the loss and who it was that beat him. Now, I fully believe that in defeat, Tim Tszyu can still come back and still have a good run at 154. I know he's someone who was really highly touted before his last 2 losses, somebody who a lot of people had a lot of faith and confidence in. And I've looked at some of his other highlights, and I do think that he really underperformed that night. But also, I think that there's some fundamental flaws that have been there all along that need to be addressed. A lot of people have come out and spoken about him and about his team, have criticized his camp and have said, this guy needs to make a change. Now, I have no idea what his team were telling him to do before the fight or in the fight. But what I do know is, whether they were saying the right things or not, those messages clearly aren't getting through to Tim because he got really, really badly beaten here by Murtazaliev. And I feel that it would be a good idea for him to have a change of scenery and go somewhere else and learn how to use his skills, because I think that Tim Tszyu is a name that we need in the mix in that division. He's somebody that we need in there. And for Australia as well, for Australian boxing, he's so important. So Tim Tszyu's got to think about his next step very, very carefully. But the reality is that his name still carries weight and carries value. And sometimes even when a top fighter in a division loses, it doesn't weaken the division, because what it does is it creates another star. And I think that might be what we have in Bakhram Murtazaliev here, because it was an unbelievably explosive performance. And this is a guy who I heard has been paid up to $2 million in step-aside money in the last few years, just so that he's not put in the ring against the top names. And I just wonder with this guy, was he always amazing and we just didn't get to see him yet? And now we've seen him, we're like, damn, this guy's here. And I know he's in his 30s, so he's only got so much time. But I was really, really impressed with the display from him. And I need to see him in there with another top fighter, and soon, because I want to know, was this just a really bad performance by Tim Tszyu? I mean, I think there'll be elements of that no matter what, because Tim got beaten so badly, but is it also that Murtazaliev is absolutely unbelievable? I think he boxed a really, really good fight, and I think that against anybody, he would give them a good match, because he's got that style. He's from Chechnya, apparently, just like Beterbiev is originally, and I do see a lot of Beterbiev in his style. not exactly the same, but there's certain things they do with their feet in particular that I really recognize in Murtazaliev. And I just think about this division, and, I think the first thing that happened to make 154 so much more interesting in recent times was Crawford moving up to 154. He's one of the biggest names in the sport today. He's pound for pound top 3 without question. And I think his move up to 154 is absolutely crucial for this division in getting it in the spotlight and getting big names to want to have fights in that division. He also brought Madrimov's star to the fore, because even though Madrimov was a champion, none of us really knew much about him. He hadn't really fought anybody of note. Nobody that we would look at and go, yeah, that's someone that we can take him seriously. I think Kurbanov was probably the biggest name on his CV at that point. And I think that Madrimov looks absolutely phenomenal. I thought he boxed so well against Crawford. And that fight with him and Serhiy Bohuchuk is absolutely brilliant. Now, my first time watching Bohuchuk was against Vergil Oritz Jr. in his last fight. And I was absolutely impressed. I thought he was fantastic. What a warrior, what a brilliant fighter. And Vergil Ortiz got the decision, but I scored that fight for Bohuchuk, and so for me, that's a rematch I definitely want to see. But Vergil Ortiz is probably the other biggest name in there after Crawford and after Tim Tszyu. And I think that Vergil Ortiz, he needs a good win, because that Bohuchuk fight was razor close. Razor close? I don't think that's the phrase, is it? It was very, very close is what I'm trying to say. You could barely split them. And I think that Ortiz would want to improve on that performance, and he want to show people he can do a lot more than what he did that night. And just when I look through that top 7 fighters, and then I think about Charlo, there's a great 8-person mix there. Fundora as well, of course. He got that win against Tszyu before Murtazaliev did. He's got that freakish size for the division. So interesting. Such an interesting fighter in the mix. And there's just so many interesting matchups in here. And fighters from, we've got a great number of US fighters in that top 10. But also, we've got fighters from sort of more Eastern Europe, and it's a real clash of styles at the minute that we're seeing. That more American style versus that Eastern European style. And I think it's just very, very exciting times for the 154 division. Now, I think after his win against Tszyu, Murtazaliev will be up for fighting anybody in that 154 mix. I mean, the dude is huge, and I hope he can stay at that weight, because 160 is not really doing too much. And then you've got to get to 168 to kind of find the next sort of matchups that you might be interested in. So I really hope he can remain at 154 and fight some of these other guys. But I would happily watch Vergil Ortiz against Murtazaliev next. If Vergil Ortiz wants to take that fight, he's got to have big balls, I'll tell you that, because that is a potentially career-changing fight in terms of not just the damage you might take, but also just if you lose the value you would lose in the process of that. But I think that top 10 is a very, very interesting list, and I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you guys think about this mix at 154? Really, this is a video that I'm not going too deep here. I just wanted to do a bit of a discussion piece to get you guys going in the comments to know, who do you want to see in these matchups? Who do you think is the best at 154? I mean, I think we have to say Crawford, right? But outside of him, how do you sort of grade it? Now, I mentioned Jermell Charlo's name earlier, and I know that he was stripped of his title back in, I don't remember when it was. I know he lost his last fight to Canelo, but I think he was able to keep his 154-pound title when he lost to Canelo. And such a strange fighter, such a talented fighter. He's 34 now, and I think that Crawford fight was one that was brewing for a while, but since he lost to Alvarez, it was at the end of 2023 now, so it's been over a year since he last fought. Since then, he had a DWI, I believe. It was some kind of misdemeanor. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with him, but he hasn't fought in a long time. He would have got paid well for the Canelo fight, so I wonder if he's even going to come back. But if he does want to get in that mix, that's another great fight, and I would not be surprised to see Crawford Charlo get made if he does come back. But needless to say, it's an interesting division because there's a lot of talent, but there's also a lot of guys who really need a win. And I just hope we get to see as many of these guys fight each other as possible. It'll be interesting to see if Crawford tries to unify that division as well, because he's only fighting once a year now, and I think that he really is just looking for the biggest paydays possible. Whether that is against a Canelo Alvarez, or whether that is against, who else would Crawford even fight at this point? Boots, in particular, at 147, he's another guy that can come up to 154, because he's huge. And by all rights, he probably is a 154 fighter. He's another guy that could come up. I know Errol Spencer's got his comeback fight at 154 as well. That's supposed to be against Fundora towards the end of the year. So if that does actually happen, I don't know if it's been properly announced yet. I don't think it's on BoxRec. But if that fight does happen, then that's a brilliant fight for the division. And if Spence can get the win there, then we add another name into 154. So this division right now is made for America. It's made to become a star division in the near future, if indeed these fights actually get made. And, I think the other problem is when a lot of guys have come off a loss and are in a division like that they don't want to take as many chances and as many risks. But hopefully with the involvement of Riyadh season, these guys are going to keep getting chances even if they do lose. So you can see, obviously, Madrimov lost to Crawford, but he's straight back in there against Bohuchuk. Bohuchuk lost to Vergil Ortiz, but he's straight in there against Madrimov, and that's a brilliant fight. And actually, that is one I've got to weigh up my time, guys. As I said to you before, I'm not full-time with this channel. I have a job, so it's hard for me. Well, a job. I work for myself, but I'm busy with it. And it's hard for me to justify making a video about that fight because I have no idea if it's going to get the attention required. But tactically, strategically, that fight fascinates me, that Madrimov-Bohuchuk fight. It really, really fascinates me. And I just instinctively, I feel like Madrimov will win, but Bohuchuk's very, very good. So I might feel differently when I go and look at it properly. But anyway, guys, not too long of a video today. I know this is still going to be like a circa 14-minute video, which for most channels is kind of, but you've seen my channel. We're all about the long-form content here, which I absolutely love, and I hope you guys love it too. But anyway, guys, please smash that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and please get in the comments section below. What are your thoughts on the matchups at 154? Who do you think is the sort of the dark horse in that division? I mean, again, I'll pull up those rankings on screen for you, and I think that Murtazaliev could be absolutely a fantastic addition. Him against any of Ortiz, Bohuchuk, Madrimov, Fundora, Spence if he gets a win. Even a rematch with Tim Tszyu would vaguely interest me just because it kind of confirms that he's that good. And if you're Tim Tszyu, it kind of gives you an opportunity to right the wrongs. So not that I think it's worth it because of how emphatic the win was for Murtazaliev, but maybe Tim Tszyu can have a couple comeback fights and down the line try and get a rematch or something. But he needs to figure out what he's doing, Tim Tszyu, because I like him. I think he's a good fighter, and I really want him to come back, and I really want him to get in the mix and stay in the mix, and there's just so many good fights there for him. But right now, based on recent performances, most of these guys have had close defeats. Tim Tszyu got obliterated, and none of those guys are getting obliterated. So, yeah, he's got a lot of work to do to get in that mix to win a title at 154. It looks like a very, very difficult task right now. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and as I always say, on to the next one.